Okay, so for those that don't know you, do you want to tell them what it is that you do?
Sure. My name is Lasara Firefox Allen. I work at Humble Area Center for Harm Reduction. I'm the new executive director there and otherwise known as Hatcher. And we are a harm reduction organization that serves the most marginalized folks in our community.
How'd you get involved with that?
Well, I actually moved up to the area a year ago, and part of my reason for moving up here was that I got the job at Hatcher as the HIV and HCV testing to treatment coordinator. And so I was in that position for a year and kind of like pinch hitting, doing all the, whatever needed to be done around the place. And so when Jessica Smith, who was our previous ED, was snatched by another organization, another harm reduction organization, I was the natural next person to step into that position. And I share leadership with Will Gibson, who is the director of programs.
Okay.
He does a lot of the on the ground, front facing work, and I do a lot of the sort of administrative and supervisorial work.
Okay. Had you done any work previous to that? Had you been involved with other organizations?
I've been involved in the harm reduction movement for a very long time, since the 90s, but primarily, specifically through advocacy for sex workers and through sex education from a harm reduction frame.
What got you said that now you're more focused on the HIV side of it. How'd you transition from sex work to that?
Yeah, well, so they're all kind of interrelated. The people who are at the most harm or most risk of contracting HIV in the United States are sex workers who are, mostly the most marginalized sex workers. And so, and we're looking at, sorry.
No, you're fine.
We're looking at, intersections of marginalization. So, women of color, trans women of color who are already marginalized are at higher risk. So basically, it's all interrelated for me. We also offer syringe services at Hatcher, and we offer hot meals, and we serve our population is primarily unhoused. Definitely a lot of folks doing sex work. So I definitely haven't abandoned that demographic. I myself was in the sex industry for many, many years.
Oh, wow. Did that obviously influence why you wanted to go back and try to help?
I mean, I never separated the two out. I mean, the whole time that I was working as a sex worker, I considered myself an advocate as well.
How did you get involved in that, if you don't mind me asking? How does one fall into that line of work, I guess?
I mean, I am a writer. I have a number of books out, and basically, I felt like sex work was a really viable way for me to augment my career path. Writing doesn't make you a lot of money. I was doing writing, I was doing life coaching, I was doing education. All of those things are not super high income potential career paths. And so I subsidized all that by doing sex work for decades, literally.
Oh, wow.
I raised my kids doing sex work.
Oh, wow. Are you a proponent for sex work?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Because that's a little dicey, because some people, it's not a choice when they go into that, and then other people's it is a choice. And so there's a lot of back and forth on, should it be legal? Should it not be legal? Are we hurting more people than we're helping by having, in Las Vegas? Is that helping people? Is it hurting people?
So I believe that the best route to both addressing trafficking, which is a real issue, and allowing people agency over their lives and bodies is decriminalization. So what we have in places like Nevada is legislative measures in place. I personally and many sex workers and sex worker advocates believe that the right track is actually to just decriminalize sex work. Here's a really simple way to look at it. You're hanging out with your friend, you give your friend $20. No biggie. You're hanging out with your friend, you make out with your friend. No biggie, right? You hang out with your friend, you give them $20 and you make out, all of a sudden there's something wrong.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make sense when you break it down.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like dicey territory, right? Because as soon as you bring it up, people are like, oh, yeah, it's like a polarizing issue right from the start. Nobody can have like an informed decision because it's just so...
I think people can. I think a lot of what we're looking at is, puritanical value systems. So anti-sex legislation is, and not just legislation, but like ideologies and, values and ethical structures and et cetera. People's internal process around it is real murky. We have a lot of bias around it. And I think that if we were able to decriminalize sex work, that some of that would automatically just get cleaner.
Yeah, there's a lot of stigma around just sex in general, let alone paying and exchanging services for sex. Have you noticed that change at all, the stigma around it?
I think it goes through waves. I think also, I think over time that it is getting more, sex work is getting a little bit less stigmatized. I think that over time, decriminalization will happen. I think it'll be very much like the marijuana movement. It'll happen in localities initially, and then it'll happen in states, and then it'll happen nationally sooner or later. Because there really is not any, in my opinion, if you actually had a separation of church and state, there's not a legitimate reason to keep sex work illegal.
That's an interesting point, because it is so heavily tied to religion.
Absolutely.
And for better or worse, religion is so heavily tied to America that trying to separate that to actually get to the root of, okay, should we make this legal? That's got to be insanely hard. Yeah.
And again, I'm just, I'll keep saying for me, the answer is just remove the criminalization of sex work and then sort it out,
Legalize it across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. And specifically decriminalize it. I don't feel like there needs to be you can cook in your kitchen and you can sell food, right? I mean, people are having sex. People are having transactional sex all the time. People do it all the time. Some people call it marriage.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because, you hear people doing all sorts of stuff like that, right? And then as soon as money gets involved, then it's like, okay, we have to stop. Like, this isn't right.
People have sex for all kinds of reasons, though.
Yeah, that's a good argument against it, right? Is people already are doing it, so why are we going to throw them in jail for that?
Right. And when you're looking at folks who are, like I said, already marginalized, and you're looking at, for example, folks who are having transactional sex for a place to sleep.
Yeah.
Right? Not a bad trade-off, honestly. For some folks, if that's within your value system, more power to you.
Yeah, I guess if you don't have, especially arguably now during the current time where a lot of people are going to be losing their housing and you don't have a whole lot of options. But then that seems dicey because then it almost doesn't seem like it's their choice. It seems like it's more circumstantial, doesn't it?
A lot of things are circumstantial.
That's a good point.
I'm also pro-abortion rights. I don't think people's bodies should be legislated.
Are a lot of the people involved in sex work, are a lot of them people of color and minority groups? So the interesting thing about sex work is there's not a vast amount of research out there done that's not totally biased because we have all these cultural factors at play. And so, there are different kinds of sex work. There are people who are working on the streets. There are people who are working out of their house. And there are different risk factors in each scenario. The more marginalized a person is, the more at risk they are for harm, either from the police or from potential, bad actors.
if you are working on the streets, you are more likely to be arrested. If you're working on the streets, you're more likely to be assaulted. If you're working on the streets, you're more likely to be in dicey situations. If you're working out of your penthouse in, wherever, if you're a high dollar escort, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's still the same amount of illegal, hypothetically, but you're less at risk for arrest. You're less at risk for, bad actors. Although one of the things that's really unfortunate about criminalization of sex work is that if I'm doing sex work and I'm assaulted, I actually can't easily go to the police and say I was assaulted because I can actually be charged with prostitution if I reveal
Oh,
that.
wow.
Uh-huh. If I'm robbed, I can't. If I'm raped, right? All of these things are compounded by the criminalization of sex work.
So if you legalized it, you'd almost be granting more protection to the people involved in this.
You would 100% be granting more protection.
That's interesting. Is that big here in Eureka and locally? Are there a lot of people involved in that?
In what?
In sex work.
Yes.
Here in the community.
Yes. There are definitely a good portion of folks doing sex work here locally.
And you guys do you guys provide resources for that?
I mean, yeah. We provide safer sex supplies to anybody who wants them, no questions asked.
Mm-hmm. Are you still involved in that, or did you? Is that? I mean, it's a little.
That's a dicey question.
I know. I was gonna say, is that something? I mean, you totally don't have to answer that. I was just.
I have done sex work within the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Is it something that? Because it's weird in today's culture. I'm not sure if you know what like OnlyFans is.
Mm-hmm. I had an OnlyFans account until just recently. I got rid of it.
For those who don't know,
they can't find it.
So for those who don't know, OnlyFans, it's almost like, how would you describe it? Like cam girls from back in the day? Yeah,
I mean it's a self-produced porn membership site, basically.
Which is weird because that's completely legal.
Mm-hmm.
And so if two people were having intercourse on that, that's completely legal and people are paying for it. It's basically...
Even if they're strangers.
Yeah.
Even if they're paying one another.
So that's weird. Legal. And yet that OnlyFans has become incredibly popular in the past few months. It just seemed to, like, a ton of people are getting involved in that.
Yes. I can tell you why it's legal.
Why is that?
It's because it's protected under free speech.
Pornography is?
Uh-huh.
Where does the line get crossed then from pornography to sex work?
That's a really good question. Pornography is sex work, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So for me, sex work is an umbrella term. And it includes, my personal definition of sex work is anything that is designed, like any activity or product that is designed to elicit sexual response.
Mm-hmm. Well, then that seems weird because pornography, I mean, people are on OnlyFans, people are literally paying a monthly fee to watch this. And what's the difference than if you paid a prostitute monthly? Right. Like what? That seems so weird, actually, thinking about it. That's crazy.
Yes.
I would imagine that the rise in that's considered empowering nowadays, isn't it? Like taking control of your body is.
I mean, I personally think that there's a whole gamut. Mm-hmm. It depends on what the factors are as to what someone's experience is going to be. I think that there's a lot of potential empowerment in sex work across the board.
Mm-hmm. That's hard too, because on the other side, you have a lot of people that say that holds women back from being empowered, is doing work like that. But then obviously on the opposite side, you say, no, this is us. This is women taking control of their bodies and.
So I think the larger issue is capitalism.
In what sense?
In that it would be great if none of us ever had to do anything we didn't want to do. Mm-hmm. But that's not the world that we live in. You and I both, I'm assuming, You know, you and I both do things that we don't necessarily, we wake up in the morning, I'm like, I don't want to go to work today.
Yeah.
But I go anyway, right? I go anyway because of capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what the work is that I'm doing. As long as capitalism exists, I think we should have as many options for how we engage with capitalism as we want. And if that includes using our bodies for sexual pleasure, so be it.
Yeah, because you can make a lot of money doing something like OnlyFans or prostitution, I would imagine.
You can.
And
Yes.
so that's kind of incentivizing going out there and doing that because, yeah, I could go work at McDonald's and make $10 an hour, or I could go do this and make a few grand in a
Yeah.
day.
And I'll tell you, for me, what it came down to as far as like doing sex work as a career path for like I said, a long time. You know, I had a lot of experience in certain arenas, but I did not have a degree.
Mm-hmm.
I only just recently got my degree. And so the options available to me were not vast as far as employment opportunities go. I could have eked something out, you know. I could have found something that would have, you know, like I could have been working in the nonprofit sector, absolutely, because I was an activist, lifelong activist. However, the like a real pragmatic parts of like, okay, I'm raising kids. I still want to prioritize my writing career. You know, I want to support my family in a good way. I want my kids to not, you know, be hungry, you know, et cetera. All the stuff that we as parents, you know, want to provide for our kids. And I wanted the flexibility of being able to work for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was awesome. It was phenomenal. And not only was it a great experience as far as that part goes, but also I felt like I was offering a solid value to my community. The work that sex workers do is highly skilled. It's important. People need touch. People need care. People need love. Some people, the only way that they're going to get that interaction is by paying for it. And that's, you know, maybe unfortunate in some ways, but at the same time, they've made choices. Some of those folks have made choices that brought them to that place. Like a lot of my clients, when I was working in the Bay Area in the 90s, and a lot of my clients were programmers. A lot of them were working 90 hours a week. A lot of them were making a lot of money, but didn't have a lot of time for creating relationships. And so it was a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
One of my clients bought my first Mac for me. It was
Oh, wow.
fucking brilliant.
Oh, wow. That's insane. That's crazy. Yeah, there's a strong argument that in legalizing that, you would have a lot of, you know, crime and like domestic violence, like a lot of abusive crime and like physical crimes go down because people are, you know, getting this touch, and most of the people committing these crimes are like isolated. They don't have a lot of friends. They're not like, you know what I mean? They're not like socializing with other people. And I've heard that argument for sex work is that, hey, maybe if these people, you know, could get laid and didn't just hate women or like go out and start shooting people up, that maybe this is just something that's necessary.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of work that we need to do culturally to overcome misogyny.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a huge thing. Another one of those up there with capitalism, patriarchy, capitalism, misogyny. You know, those are like huge issues that we need to continue addressing. I don't feel like we're doing it effectively by taking rights away from mostly female identified people, as far as, you know, the right to use their body the way that they see it. There's another analogy that that's common in the sex worker advocacy frame, which is the phrase like, if you think that sex work is selling your body, but you don't think that mining is, you know, you're having a sex negative reaction.
That is a very interesting perspective. That is a very interesting perspective because a lot of people do manual labor jobs.
Right.
And you could consider sex work a manual labor job. That's interesting. I've never heard that argument before.
Mm-hmm.
Is so for you was so money was a primary motivator. It wasn't so much that you enjoyed the
I
work.
loved it.
Oh,
I
you
loved
did.
it.
Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Is that a general consensus amongst
Oh
most people
no,
doing it? Oh,
it's
okay.
not a general consensus, and I also don't think you need to love your work in order to do
Most
it and
people
get
don't.
something out of it. You know,
Yeah.
like and I think that like there's a whole people want to think that sex workers love their work, and a lot of us do, but it's not a requirement for being good at the job.
Is drug use, is that pretty serious amongst sex workers? Is the need for like an escape in that sense?
You know, again, I don't think that there's enough reliable data out
Yeah,
there
that's
to
true.
give
How do
you
you
a
kn-
statistical analysis on that. But I do think that that again, there are going to be factors involved that are going to make, you know, drug use or chaotic drug use or whatever, you know, more or less likely. And it depends on a lot of factors. I think poverty is a risk factor for drug use. I think that when we have a very challenging life, that we're, you know, and maybe aren't getting the right medication, maybe aren't getting the right resources, maybe don't have the right kinds of support, you know, we're going to make choices that aren't necessarily the most long-term viable. At the same time, like I also, you know, I'm a harm reductionist. I believe that people are going to make the best choices they can make given their circumstances.
Does that kind of work take any sort of mental toll on you, though? Is there any, like, coming to terms with, you know, the actions? Is there any, you know,
How do you mean?
Well, I'm just trying to think that if, you know, if I were to do that, I guess, do guys do that? Is that common?
What's that? Sex work?
Yeah, sex work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would, you know, it would have to be circumstantial if I was, you know, I can't even really picture a circumstance where I would, but it's, like, I feel like there would be a mental toll that would take on me trying to come to terms with, like, okay, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think that the largest mental toll that it ever took on me was the fear of being arrested, honestly, because a cop can come in and not tell you that they're a police officer and have sex with you and then arrest you. They can
After having sex with you?
literally do that.
Oh, that doesn't seem right.
Do that. Yes, they can and they do.
Shouldn't that be illegal for them engaging in sex? That's crazy. That's a real thing.
It's a real thing, and it's not always consensual. I mean,
oh my God.
Yeah, it's. I'm an abolitionist, so you know it's no big surprise. But and that is partially because of my experience of law enforcement over the decades. At any rate, my fear of being arrested for doing the work that I considered part of my life path, really, honestly, was so intense that my husband, the father of my children, and I had an agreement that if I were ever arrested, he would say that he had no knowledge of the fact that I was doing sex work and would divorce me so that he could keep custody of our children. Because also children are taken away from people who do sex work. That is also a thing that happens.
How did your husband have any difficulty coming to terms with that?
No.
Wow.
I mean, with what part? With me doing sex work?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh,
no.
wow.
No, he supported it.
Are you worried? Do your kids know?
Oh, yeah.
Has there been any pushback or any weird feelings regarding that?
Nope.
No, completely supportive.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I mean, because I've been out to them the whole time. It's not I don't have any shame about it, so why would there be any
Yeah, I
pushback?
guess if you don't instill the stigma
Right.
in them, then
Right.
what do they have to, you know, grab onto for that?
Right.
When you say you're an abolitionist, are you talking about in regards to the police?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's a dicey subject too, right? Are you for the defund the police movement or disband the police?
Absolutely.
What do you think about everything that's going on in like Seattle right now?
I mean, I think that, you know, like life is complicated. Mm-hmm. I believe that the police have too much power. And I believe that the militarization of police is incredibly problematic. And it continues on. And I think it's going to be part of a major crisis for America in the near future.
I I can't get what you said about them being able to have sex with a sex worker before they arrested. I can't get that out of my head. That seems like a serious
They have
misuse
to
of power.
prove that they're a sex worker. How else are they going to prove that
I
they're
know,
a
but you
sex
think that them
worker?
accepting the money for it would be proof enough that you could draw the line
One would think.
there. Is that's legal across the board? They can do that?
I don't know if it's legal, but I know that it's done.
It's been done.
Mm-hmm. It is done. It's done ongoingly. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any call to stop that? I mean, is that
yeah.
Mhm.
From
sex workers?
sex workers.
Is there any progress being made with that?
Yes, there is progress being made. There's a decriminalization bill being on. It's I believe it's on the ballot in New York City, New York State, maybe. I think it's just New York City.
Okay.
Currently, DC also is looking at decriminalization of sex work. Like I said, it's going to happen place by place. And, I'm hoping Humboldt County will be a place that decriminalizes sex work.
It's weird that Arizona just got under the radar with that it's legal in Las Vegas. That they just somehow managed to squeeze that in there and it's accepted.
Yeah, it's still very legislated. Mm-hmm. It's Nevada, and it's still like there are like
Oh yes, my bad. Did I say Arizona? Oh
no
my
worries. God. No worries. I was like, what happened in
Arizona?
There are like ranches. It's not legal to do street walking in Vegas, for example. It's like it's very legislated, which I think is unfortunate. And I think ultimately for me, again, I'll come back to the request from the sex worker community is decriminalization, not legalization.
Mm-hmm. By street walking, you mean them just walking down the street and picking somebody up?
Yeah. Okay. So, any movie that you watch where,
they're on the corner or something. Okay.
Right.
How is it done? Do you have to call somebody?
So in Nevada, there are ranches. They're called ranches or a lot of the Bunny Ranch or the Moonlight, just these little places where women, primarily women, go and work. I never did that. I never wanted to work for someone else. Mm-hmm. I like having my own freedom and the ability to say no if I think a client is not for me for sketchy. Whatever reason. I like being able to say, you know what, this just isn't working for me. I'm going to ask you to leave. Mm-hmm. And, that doesn't happen often, but it has happened on occasion. The Sesta Fosta has also made things really complicated. So what
is that?
The stop something, I can't ever remember what the acronym is about, but it was written supposedly to help to end trafficking through internet
sites or something.
Basically. Okay. But what it did was it ended up having a chilling effect. So basically a lot of the advertising locations for people who are working out of apartments, homes, whatever, a lot of those sites went down. And so the advertising spaces were taken away. Also boards where clients and workers would meet up. Review boards where clients could review different workers. Review boards where workers could review different clients, mm-hmm. which is incredibly important, especially when you don't have the ability to have external enforcement of basic human decency. You don't have the police to go to, so you need to do a lot of self-regulation. And so when those sites went away, there was a large influx of folks who started working on the street who had historically not been working on the street.
Oh, wow.
And like I said earlier, the street is a much more complicated. You're more likely to end up with, indecent exposure charges. You're more likely to end up with prostitution charges. You're more likely to end up with, in somebody's car going somewhere where you don't know where you're going. Mm-hmm. when I had my apartment in the Bay Area, like if I felt like wasn't sure, if I had a new client and I wasn't sure about them, I would get a friend to come and stay in the extra bedroom.
Okay.
So I had backup. The client would never know that someone was there.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a threat. It was just for my security.
Yeah, for safety.
Exactly. So, like there are a lot of factors that make working out of an apartment or a motel or a hotel or whatever safer than working on the street. Like I never had to get in someone's car that I didn't know. And that's a risk in and of itself. Like you don't know where this person's going to take you.
Yeah, it seems incredibly dangerous.
Right.
I mean, even having a friend, like, it seems incredibly dangerous. What if the person has a weapon or...
Right.
Have you heard a lot of horror stories of stuff happening with clients? Or most people generally, how do you even gauge who's going to be...
Well, that's why those sites are so important, right? So when I was working down in the Bay Area, we would have a list, like the Bad Johns list. And if you had a bad date, you would put it on the list. You would put the person's, name that they were going by and whatever information you had about them, a description, where they met you, what kind of car they were driving, if you had that information, etc. You would put that information on a list so that other workers would know that that person was a risk.
So you all had that resource to be able to identify
and
people.
now if you do that, you can actually be charged with trafficking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you are a person who's curating a list like that, you can be charged with trafficking.
I get it to some extent because stopping trafficking is across the board. That's just like everyone wants to do that. Like there's nobody saying, okay, trafficking is just, what it is. No, everyone's like, we need to stop trafficking.
Absolutely.
And how do you distinguish someone who's having consensual sex for payment or for something and someone who is doing that against their will?
My answer to that is you decriminalize sex work, and then trafficking all of a sudden stands out in stark relief.
You think that trafficking would stop if it was decriminalized?
No, I don't think the trafficking would de facto stop if sex work were decriminalized, but you would be able to tell more easily what was trafficking and what was sex work, right? Consensual sex work, because it was no longer criminalized, wouldn't be in the way of seeing where the trafficking was happening. Right? As it is, everything is lumped together. And so the money that's supposed to be going to fighting trafficking is going to, criminalizing people who are consensually having sex for money.
I just wonder how you would be able to distinguish.
Right, because if all of a sudden consensual sex work were decriminalized, then those people would no longer be the target of stings. They would no longer be the
Oh, I see what you're saying. So they could dedicate more resources to actually finding traffickers instead of just getting both.
Right.
Okay. I could see that. It's just it's insane how prevalent trafficking actually is.
Well, and the other thing about trafficking, and we think about sex trafficking a lot, but honestly, the amount of trafficking that's sex trafficking is minuscule compared to the amount of trafficking that's done that's, labor. The non-sex massage parlors. That's trafficking? There are cases of trafficking.
Wow. I thought it was all
involved.
Sexual. That makes sense that it would be for labor and stuff too.
Yeah. Folks who come over and again, I don't think there's a simple answer to this, but I'm just saying it's not all trafficking is sex related.
It's a complex issue.
Nannies. Mail order brides.
Yeah, mail order brides is a little dicey too, huh?
Where do you want? Yeah,
because that you're almost buying somebody.
Right.
And then presumably you're going to have a relationship with them to some extent because you're married to them, I would suppose.
Right.
And so that is almost sex work to some extent, right?
I mean,
it's weird how they draw the lines between, okay, this is good, this is not good.
Yeah.
This isn't okay.
It's super complicated. It's super complex. There's no, it's just, we would like it to be really clean
Black
and
and
clear.
white.
It's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not.
And so the resources that you guys offer at Hatcher, have you noticed that a lot of people that come in to seek help for that are, do people want to get out?
No.
No, they want to stay in.
Yeah.
Is it because of the money?
I mean, one of the things about sex work is that it doesn't require a college degree.
Mm-hmm. There's no bar to entry.
Right. And that's why decriminalization is so important instead of legalization, right? So legalization, you need licensing, you need you have zoning restrictions, blah, 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 blah. That's not what we want to see. What we'd like to see is decriminalization so that people who are doing sex work are just left alone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let them do what they're doing. Obviously, there's going to be some zoning restriction, like, no open sex work around a school, just like with, drugs, right? Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, obviously there are some things that make sense, but like the more we push people into the shadows, the more dicey it gets.
Yeah, it introduces a more criminal aspect because you're operating with all these other things that are going on in the dark.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's interesting. I had no idea. Well, I didn't even know that sex work was really prevalent in Eureka up until a little while ago. I had somebody else talk to me about it, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that was even going on. I mean, you don't see it, so you don't think about it,
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. I do want to talk about, you also mentioned the needle program that you guys do at Hatcher,
Mm-hmm.
which is a hot topic.
Sure.
You guys are it's a current exchange program, right?
We are an exchange program.
So is it one for one?
We are a 1-for-1.
But you guys want to go to an open exchange, right?
The best practices in harm reduction is an open exchange because that is where the actual reduction in transmission of bloodborne pathogens is most successful.
Okay.
Right.
It's from them just being able to
get needles if they need them.
There are a lot of people that would say that is, endorsing drug use or facilitating the use for those trying to do drugs. Is that?
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Agree.
No.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one, it's none of my business what somebody does with their body.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the base argument for me is it's none of my business what somebody else does with their body. That being the assumption, there's not a single thing I can do that's going to make someone else not do something with their body that they want to do with their body.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I can do is I can show up and help that person, if they want the assistance, to make the best choices possible as far as how that's going to happen. And so for some people, like we also offer a bunch of other supplies. We offer snorter kits. We offer smoking kits. And that's harm reduction.
Mm-hmm.
So say someone is like, I'm tired of getting abscesses. I don't want to use needles anymore. I'm going to only use pipes from here on out.
And you guys provide
Absolutely.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gotten a lot of pushback from the community?
So Hatcher did get pushback from the community when it first started out, but I'm pleased to say Jessica Smith, Brandy was amazing. She was a powerhouse. Jessica Smith was, and still is. She's still in the community. She's still doing harm reduction work. She's just not doing it at Hatcher. Mm-hmm. But she's mind-blowing. And she did an amazing amount of work to create a collaborative environment at Hatcher and invite community members in. And I'm following that lead. If anybody wants to come and check it out, you are welcome to come visit. Folks are welcome to come volunteer. They're welcome to come have a meal. We serve hot meals 3 days a week, also harm reduction. Mm-hmm. We give people sunscreen, also harm reduction.
You guys also distribute naloxone, right?
Yes.
Narcan and stuff? Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And fentanyl test strips. Mm-hmm. We have fentanyl test kits. We have, again, snorter kits. And, folks do drugs. folks do drugs. And we just, if you're an HSU student and you're going to party for the weekend, please come get a fentanyl test kit. Please come get a snorter kit. Please come get the supplies that you need. People aren't aware that you can get Hep C from sharing straws. You can.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
It.
So if anyone has ever shared a straw with someone, I highly recommend that they get a Hep C test.
Wow. Sharing straws. Is it from the saliva?
Well, I'm talking about nasal straws.
Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about soda straws, and I was like,
no.
oh my God.
No. So I'm talking about, so if you snort anything ever, if you've ever snorted anything and didn't use your own equipment, get tested.
Mm-hmm. It's hard. I feel like there's a lot of misconception about NET programs because you hear a lot of people, well, first off, people are upset when they find needles on the ground. And I think a lot of people think that the program was designed as a way to stop drug use, which is what I initially thought. But it's not so much that, right? It's more to stop the spreading of diseases and HIV and Hep C.
So I have two things to say about that. One is we have an employee who their whole job is, if somebody calls or sends an email to hatcher707@gmail.com, that's Hatcher, HACHR 707@gmail.com, or give us a call on any of our public lines. We have someone who will come to your house, your business, wherever, your street, and clean up syringes.
But you have to call first.
Well,
and point them out and say,
yeah.
Okay.
If you're like, I don't want to deal with that myself, we have someone who will come do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that we offer as a community service. We're not required to do that. It's just something that we offer as a community service.
Mm-hmm.
We are not invested in having people quit doing what they're doing, but we are going to offer them options. We offer on site a low barrier linkage to medication assisted treatment, otherwise known as MAT, through an organization called Bright Heart Health. We work closely with them. We have, I think, in the last few weeks, we have had over 30 people enroll in medication assisted treatment.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So while we're not about getting people to quit using whatever substances they're using, if they want help getting there, we absolutely do offer that assistance.
Are you noticing that a lot of the people coming in to get some of the equipment you guys provide, are they the same people? Is it new people?
Both. We have both. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We have, our core group of folks who we know by name and who, are around every day and who volunteer and, our consumers volunteer too. Like, everyone, it's a community. It's a community.
Are a lot of people joining that program, like you said? Or is the 30, was that like a rare instance?
Oh, no, it's ongoing.
Okay.
I mean, the pandemic is definitely making some folks make some choices that they might make differently otherwise. But, some folks are tired of being on the streets. Some people are tired of needing to find their medicine, it's, so you never know what's going to be the thing that's going to make somebody say, today is a good day to quit doing X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm. Are you guys expecting like an uptick in people coming in from the pandemic with people losing their jobs?
We have definitely had an uptick in syringe exchange.
Mm-hmm. And you probably don't know what drug most of them are using, do you? Because heroin is a big issue in the community, right?
I mean, yeah, we don't necessarily ask people what substances they're using. But we do know that people use all kinds of substances. Yeah. And, I don't know if you were tuned into it, but like over winter break last year, 3 people OD'd on fentanyl. Do you remember that in Arcata?
Here. No, I didn't know that.
Okay, so 3 people OD'd, and none of them were regular users. They just got a bad batch. I believe it was Coke that had had
Laced.
fentanyl
Yeah.
mixed
Something.
in, and they OD'd, and one of them died.
Oh,
Two
wow.
of them died. I'm not sure, but it was kind of a big deal because it was like folks who, you just never know if it's going to be you. That's all I'm saying. Like if you do drugs recreationally, have Narcan on hand. If you do drugs recreationally, have fentanyl test strips on hand.
There are people that would say that the resources that you guys provide would be better suited towards, teaching people, hey, maybe don't do this, that this isn't really that great for you, that there's no real benefit from, shooting heroin or snorting coke.
I can't decide for anyone what
Mhm.
benefit there is to anything that they're doing. It's while I might make different choices, like I said, I'm not, I personally am not, I don't feel like I have the standing in the world to make choices for other people about what they're going to do with their bodies.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, it's hard, right? Because you obviously don't want to see people get hurt and, use bad drugs if they are going to use drugs. So then the services you guys provide are fantastic. But then on the flip side, if I had a kid or someone I loved and cared about and they were going to you guys and getting needles, that they were going back home and shooting up with heroin, I would be furious with you guys because I would feel like you guys are, co-opting their habit to some extent. But then if they died because it was a bad needle, then I mean it's multifaceted.
And like having fresh needles is really important for a lot of reasons. And like I have people in my life who since I was, in my teens, who have been, needle users and have used, all kinds of different substances. One of my very close loved ones lost their partner to a blood infection from a dirty shot. So, you just have to be careful with, like, you want to make sure that the needles are sharp. You want to make sure they're fresh. Like, and so for me, I don't want people to be making choices that are going to injure them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can't access the supplies that they need to do something more safely.
Yes. How are people getting needles before NEP programs?
You can buy them at pharmacies.
Oh, I thought they were illegal. I didn't think you could buy them.
You can buy them at pharmacies. And
anyone can.
I believe so. I mean,
wow.
you can also, the county also has an exchange.
Oh, do they really?
Yes.
Oh, I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. They are not stuck with the 1-to-1 rule. They have the best practices.
They are open. They have an open policy.
Yes.
Oh, wow. I wonder if
I believe so.
know
I
that.
could be wrong about that. I could be wrong about that. So maybe not. Maybe it's not open, but I don't know if they're a 1-for-1.
I did not know that the county even had one. I thought you guys were the only ones.
No, we're very thankful. We work closely with the county. And, we stay in touch with the county. Mm-hmm. They stay in touch with us. We let them know what we have on hand. Supplies have been really glitchy since COVID. We don't always get stuff when we're supposed to get it. Shipping is slow, blah, 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 et cetera. It's like all the stressors of COVID are just intense.
Yeah, they're hitting everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely affected how we offer services.
Mm-hmm.
We don't let, consumers don't come in the building at this point and won't until we feel like it's safer.
Yeah.
So we do like curbside pickup, basically.
Is there any sort of regulation on how many utensils you guys can give out, or is there any tracking on?
We track all of our...
You track.
Oh,
so
yes.
You have numbers on, okay, we let out this many this month. Okay.
We absolutely have numbers, and our ratio has been over 100% return.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Is that people...
We get more syringes back from the community than we give out.
Is that people exchanging them directly, or you guys collecting them as well? Is that
both?
Okay.
But people, people bring in more than they take out.
Are those numbers? Can the public access those numbers, or it's private?
I mean, if someone wanted to see our numbers, I would absolutely show them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I didn't know you guys I would have thought, because you hear all the time that people are finding needles on the ground and all this stuff. And then to hear you say that, that's very interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I would have thought that
we
there would
have
be.
over 100% return.
And do you find a lot of people are willing to bring them back to you guys?
Oh, yeah.
And that's because you guys have the one-to-one, or you think they would do that in an open exchange where they didn't need any as
I
well?
think they'd bring them back anyway because they, folks are members of the community, right? They're members of the community. All the folks who are using our services are from here. They live here. They have as much investment in making sure that things work out and run smoothly and nobody gets hurt, as anybody does, if not more so.
I'm sure there's people hearing you say that and thinking, because of the stigma around drug use, yeah, well, if they don't care about their body, why are they going to care about some kid pricking themselves with the needle if all they care about is, getting that next fix?
I mean, that's a very dehumanized view of people when what we're talking about is actually human beings who
and you've noticed the opposite
yeah.
occurring. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, drugs are drugs and people are people, I think, again, we have a lot of puritanical views about what should be allowed and what shouldn't, which is also hypocritical as all get out, I have to say, because most of us use substances. Most
Alcohol
of us use
could
substances.
be considered a substance.
Absolutely. It is a substance. There's alcohol, there's caffeine, there's sugar.
A lot of people addicted to sugar.
Yeah. Not to mention pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. The opioid epidemic is a problem here as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's an issue. I don't think it's being handled well, but it's an issue, yeah.
How do you think it should be handled? Are you talking about the opioids or drug use as a whole?
I think that the opioid epidemic I think that when you stop... So if someone is used to having an opiate on board and you take that away, what do you think that person is going to do?
Well, I would assume try to get more.
Right. Where are they going to get it?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get it on the street.
Yeah.
What are they going to get? They are not necessarily going to get the thing that's working for them for their pain, whatever that pain is that they're living with. They're going to end up with some inferior product in some cases. They're going to end up with something that's laced in some cases. They're going to end up with something that is not going to work as well, or they're going to end up going to graduating to to something that's more readily available that maybe is not as good of a fit for them. And so I don't think that the opiate epidemic is being handled well. I don't think that taking away pharmaceutical opioids from people is the best bet when people actually need them for pain control.
Would it be better to legalize it and have, a source distribute it, kind of like they're doing with marijuana, where you can just go to a store and, buy it?
I mean, now we're getting into it. Yes, I believe all substances should be decriminalized
Across the board.
I personally believe that, yeah. And that's not a Hatcher policy necessarily, but it's my personal opinion.
Why? Do you think that would... Because there's some people that would say that if you decriminalize it, then people are going to start doing it. People that would maybe be persuaded not to because it's illegal. Do you believe in that argument?
I don't believe in that argument.
So why? Why do you think it should
be? I think that people are going to use the substances they're going to use. And the safer it is, the better.
That's a strong argument. I mean, you wouldn't have people ODing on, laced cocaine.
Right.
Or some other drug that's cut with rat poison or whatever.
MDMA. People party, and they end up with, drugs that are laced with things that they don't necessarily want in their bodies, right? What if you could get your, whatever your thing is that, you want to go to a dance party and you want to use whatever it is that makes you happy to dance for 6 hours or 12 hours or whatever, right? What if you could get that at a dispensary? What if it were purity tested?
It'd be a lot safer. Now, there's a lot of research I know about how Well, first off, have you guys noticed over at Hatcher that like Hep C has decreased in the community? Because that was a big issue a few years ago, wasn't it?
So I don't know exactly what the stats are on the rate of hepatitis infection. I know we're still above the state average
Mm-hmm.
in Humboldt County.
Have you noticed any change? Because you guys started the
So
needle exchange like 2016?
yeah.
Okay.
And we do 2015? I can't remember, but somewhere around there. I am not total. I do know that the most recent study that came out, there was a county or a state. I think it was a state sponsored study that came out last year, I believe, said that we're, I think, 4% above, or 4 times the state average.
Oh, wow.
But that, that also infection could have happened 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't necessarily know that they're infected unless they get tested, which is why we're also people can have Hep C for a very long time before they get any health complications from it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
It can exist in your body for a long. My father has had Hep C and has had to have a liver transplant, and he had been Hep C positive since he was in his 20s. He didn't get cirrhosis until he was in his early 60s.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I mean, Hep C can be in your body for a long time. So, again, I'm just saying, like, if you don't know, get tested, if you don't know, get tested. And so, because there are treatments available, and the treatments that are available now for Hep C are way kinder to the body than they used to be. And you can basically have you can be healed from Hep C at this point.
It's curable.
I mean, you'll still show antibodies, but you won't have active Hep C in your body.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
What are the symptoms of that?
Of Hep C?
Yeah.
I mean, liver pain, liver swelling. Like if it gets you can get cirrhosis, you can get liver cancer ultimately. So that's why you want to find out sooner than later and get the treatment, and then you don't develop the cirrhosis and liver cancer.
There's a lot of data that needle exchange programs absolutely help that they help decrease transmission, they help stop the spread of these diseases amongst that population. But are there side effects? Are people, that maybe come across these needles in the street, are they accidentally getting pricked? And are there injuries and stuff associated with any of that? Or is that pretty minimal?
It's very minimal. And, the chances of you getting Hep C or HIV from a needle stick are very low.
Mm-hmm.
That said, there are also treatments available. So if I were to get, because, I'm around syringes at work. So if I were to get poked, I would do PEP, which is post-exposure prophylaxis. And it is a medication regimen that I believe I think it's 3 weeks long, and it's an antiviral. It's a combination of antivirals that to make it so that your chances of actually getting HIV specifically are almost non-existent.
Oh, wow. Well, that's fantastic.
So for me, and I've worked in other environments where, like I worked at a clinic, and I worked at another needle exchange, down in Ukiah before I moved up here. Yeah, if I had ever ended up with a needle stick, I would do PEP. I mean, and PEP is used for a lot of different, like if you have a sexual encounter where you don't know the HIV status of the person that you had sex with, and there's a chance of transmission, then you can do PEP for that as well.
Are people being pricked though, just by needles in general? No, you guys haven't heard of any?
No.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, not that it never, ever, ever happens, but it doesn't, no, it's not a real.
Not where we discredit the program with the amount of, okay.
No. And like I said, if you don't want to get near a syringe that's on, in your doorway or whatever, wherever it is, call us and
You guys will
our
pick it up.
side truck will come get it.
Well, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of there. I've tried to find research on that to see if there were, community exposure increased or there were adverse.
It would be decreased. The potential.
No, not
yeah,
not from Hep C or anything, but just exposure with an increased exposure to needles if people were accidentally getting pricked or
So when folks come in, sometimes they have their stuff in we give people sharps containers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we give them sharps containers.
Mm-hmm.
That said, not everybody has sharps containers, so sometimes they'll bring in soda jars, soda bottles, or they'll bring in a cereal box full. We'll be like, here's a sharps container, put your stuff in there, and we'll count, we'll tally it up and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Then we take the soda bottle or the Gatorade jug or whatever, or the sharps container. We tape it up. We put it in a safe receptacle, and it's picked up by the medical waste folks.
What do they do with it after they pick it up from you guys? Are they cleaned?
I believe they're incinerated.
Oh, okay.
I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not totally sure, but I think that's what happens.
Oh, wow.
But they're disposed of safely.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine that the county is keeping track of everything they're dishing out to. Do you guys receive any federal funding for this, or is it?
We do not receive federal funding.
Can you do?
We are a nonprofit. We're a non-governmental community-based organization.
Okay.
We operate specifically based on grants.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
From the state of California.
Some from the AIDS United Foundation, some from different pharmaceutical organizations will fund certain services programs.
Oh, wow.
Harm reduction coalitions.
Mm-hmm.
We have a grant that's coming in from a harm reduction coalition grant that I believe is state funds. Some of it's state funds, and then, but yeah, we don't. I don't think that we get any federal funding.
The federal government, it's not banned, but they don't really give out federal funding for these type of programs, do they?
Not that I know of. And there are a lot of restrictions on federal funds across the board, around anything that has to do with personal choice about your body.
Mm-hmm.
So, federal funds also can't go to funding abortions.
Yeah. Planned Parenthood doesn't get any money from the feds.
Right.
That's interesting. And what I didn't know, and I don't know if most people know this, is that programs like this have been going on since the late 80s, right?
Yeah.
And I think even the Obama campaign campaigned on increasing needle exchange programs or something like that. I don't think he ever went through with it, but I think that was something he was running with.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I grew up in Mendocino County.
Oh, okay.
And I remember back in the day, and it was late 80s, early 90s, there was one guy who was driving a van around doing a renegade exchange. That was the first exchange services in Mendocino County.
Oh, wow.
And then McAven started doing exchange services, when it got, as part of what they offer down there. Yeah, I mean, the programs have been around for a long time, and they're around because they work.
They're still relatively scarce, though, right? There's not a whole lot of programs like you guys.
More every day.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Ideally, every community will have a syringe services, organization, at least one available to them.
That's crazy to think about. But, I mean, if it helps stop the spread of diseases, arguably it would help everyone. How do police feel about what you guys are doing? Is that a little touchy subject?
Yeah, that's a touchy subject. What can I say about that?
Because arguably they're next to you guys. They're probably coming into contact with these needles more than anybody else.
I mean, hypothetically, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But also they could just leave people alone.
That is one approach. Do you guys get a lot of pushback from them though about?
Yes,
Oh,
we do.
really? They're not
We do
in
get some
favor.
pushback from them. There are a couple officers who we're friendly with.
Mm-hmm. What is their take?
The office. Let me rephrase that. There are a couple officers that we're not adversarial with, and it's not that we're adversarial with them, but the officers can tend to make our job much more complicated.
In what sense?
Like if they post up on our street, then and even just looking at people who are accessing our services.
Oh, like picking up people that come and get, kind of like what they did with, marijuana for a while, where they wait and pick up people that are going to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Has that happened a lot?
It happens, and it's not cool. Mm-hmm. It's legitimately unfortunate that it happens, and they will cruise through. They cruise through our spot on a depending on how frustrated they are with our population or how bored they are. Who knows what the predictor is, but different days of the week they will spend more or less time cruising through our spot. Wow. So we're just, we just really keep everything very legitimate and above the board. There's no drug use on site. There's absolutely zero tolerance for any drug sales or exchanges on site. Zero tolerance. Zero tolerance for use on site. We're like, people are standing 6 feet apart and people are wearing masks. Like, we're just being real careful and
following the protocols
and taking care of our people. It's as much for us as it is for anybody else.
Mm-hmm. It seems like, on one hand, that a program like this would almost help officers because in the event that they do get pricked with a needle, their risk of actually being exposed to anything in the first place would be
lower.
way lower,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
So it seems, are any of them happy that the program is in place, even though others are, picking up people as they're around your facility? Right. Have you gotten any positive feedback from them, or they would just rather the program not exist?
I don't know if there is a group consensus one way or the other, to be honest. I have not made it my business to inquire into the Eureka police, and I don't necessarily feel like I need to do that work. If any officer wants to engage with me, they're welcome to get in touch and be like, "Hey, I'm friendly to your organization." And I'll be like, "Great. What does that mean? And let's talk about what we can do with it."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not necessarily. I also don't have. I will say that Eureka Police did try to shut Hatcher down during COVID.
It's not essential?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And Jessica, who is a badass, had it handled within 48 hours.
Mm-hmm. You guys got the essential
Yes,
tag.
we are essential. If a liquor store is essential, come on.
That's a good point. And marijuana was essential, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah,
it still is. Point. We all know it is.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was interesting, though, because they closed, AA meetings, which you think would be, that is essential for a lot of people trying to get help in programs like that. You
can hypothetically do an AA meeting on Zoom, though. That's an option. That is a good point. You can't do certain services on Zoom.
Mm-hmm. And you guys have noticed an uptick since COVID of people coming in.
And again, we're also giving people soap and toothbrushes and toothpaste, and we're giving people socks and underwear, and we're giving people hot meals, and we're giving people, a phone to use so that they can make their doctor's appointments, and we're giving them, access to our technology so that they can keep their medication-assisted treatment meeting appointments. We offer a lot of services. Mm-hmm. And all of those services are essential to our population. Our population needs that. They need the human interaction. Mm-hmm. They need the space where they can be human around other humans and not be judged or looked at askance or, cussed out.
Do you guys do a lot of outreach programs to try to inform the public of, hey, these are all our services. This is how you can take
Yeah.
advantage of them. You do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you guys go to like HSU and talk?
We don't. We do. I mean, Jessica used to go speaking classes at HSU. It's a lot dicier this year with the COVID protocols in place. So,
You can't
but
really
yeah,
hold a gathering or...
we have a relationship with HSU. Yes.
Well, that's cool. Do a lot of students take advantage of that?
We have interns and we have volunteers who come in from HSU, which is great.
Cool.
So we have a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Oh, great. That's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I wonder if a lot of people know all the services, because like hearing you say you guys do food and socks and soap, important things for the local community and the homeless community especially. I mean,
we hand out tents. We hand out sleeping bags. We have a clothing closet. We have, because like when you're unhoused, you can't do laundry. You have what's on your body often, so like having a fresh change of clothes, being able, like you can't operate in the world without these basic elements. And so many of us take it all for granted.
The homeless situation in Eureka is interesting because first off, it seems to be very tied to drug use, right? Have you noticed that?
I mean, one could make an argument that drug use is tied to homelessness.
Or that's true too. But, regardless, the two seem to be combined, and it seems that the homeless problem is progressing in a negative direction here. It seems like there are more homeless.
COVID is going to do that.
Well, yeah, especially.
Absolutely.
But even before that, it seems like just more and more homeless people have been showing up.
We're an economically depressed town.
Eureka. Okay.
And there aren't a lot of options for employment. And there are more people than there are jobs available, is what it looks like to me as a fairly recent transplant to the area. There are a lot of factors at play. I mean, you can't totally keep it away from like environmental negligence too. Like
what sense?
Logging and fishing were two of the largest employment options in this region, and they aren't viable anymore because they weren't done sustainably.
You came from the Bay Area, you said?
I lived in the Bay Area when I was younger. I grew up in Mendocino County.
Are they struggling with the homeless population as well? It seems like California as a whole has issue of...
California is a golden handcuff state, really. Like,
meaning what?
Just like, none of us want to leave, but it's not easy to live here.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
It's very expensive. On a good day, it's very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. It just seems like that's one of those things. Do you guys offer programs for, resources for the homeless to try to better their situation, or are you guys more not so affected
we
by
can
that?
definitely hook people up with services if they're, we have referrals. We offer out referrals all the time. If somebody wants to go into an inpatient treatment program, we have referrals in place. We have a close relationship with Aegis, for instance.
What is that?
The new methadone and Suboxone treatment clinic here in town.
Oh, okay.
We referred many people to Aegis and still do. If people want to find housing, we will do our best to hook them up with county resources. If people want to find medical care, our case manager, Christina, is mind-blowing. She's tireless. She works so hard. She will help people to get hooked up with, she drives people to the ER herself and will wait for them. She's amazing. Our staff of folks who are, many of whom are peers as well, and have been consumers over the years. And we don't make a requirement. We don't require abstinence as an employment policy. So.
Oh, okay. You guys don't do any drug testing or anything?
Oh, no. No.
And most of the people that work there have used substances?
And maybe using them now.
Do you think that better equips them to help the population going through that? Or
Absolutely. It's a peer-led, harm reduction in general is a peer-led movement.
Mm-hmm. And emphasis being harm reduction, not stopping the act.
Unless that's what someone wants. If someone comes to us and they say, I am done.
Mm-hmm.
Today I am done.
Then you
we
will help
say,
them.
Okay.
Are a lot of people...
Here are the services that are available to you.
Do a lot of people want to stop using drugs, or is it, this is what they want? This is...
Stopping using drugs is, I think, a lie.
Meaning what? That nobody ever really wants to stop?
Meaning, I think that most people don't stop using drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we have a culture that's very drug dependent, and that's just something to get our heads around. Like, when you say stop doing drugs, what do you mean? Like, what does it mean to you when you say that? Most of us use drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Most Americans use drugs.
See, but that creates a bigger question of, why are people using drugs? Why do they feel like they need to escape from life to some extent? Which is a whole nother issue.
Because humans seek pleasure.
And drugs are that pleasure.
It's one of the ways that we can get some pleasure, honestly, And I think if we could take some of the judgment off of it, it would be a lot healthier.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have a lot healthier relationship. We wouldn't necessarily fall so quickly or so easily into chaotic use if people were more open about the fact that drugs are a normalized part of our culture.
Mm-hmm. Well, some drugs are getting that way, right? You've got marijuana, mushrooms are beginning to get public attention.
Absolutely.
But then how do you say, okay, well, if you want to do heroin, you should? Because I mean, right, heroin will kill you if you use it long enough, right?
No.
Oh, it won't?
No.
But can you be productive using that?
I have known, yes.
Wow.
You absolutely can be. Yes, you
Clearly
absolutely
I'm not
can
educated
be.
on the subject.
Yes, you absolutely can be. I mean, I have personal, very close people to me who I know who've used heroin for, I'll be 50 in May. I for my whole life, I've known people who use heroin and who have productive, quality lives. Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. Because all you hear is, man, heroin, you're gonna be that guy living on the side of the street under a blanket that's cracked out of his head.
Yeah, and I honestly believe that if we lifted some of those, stigmas, we would have a better relationship with substance use.
That is insane. I've never, I would have never thought. Obviously, with the stigma that I've brought into it, but it's crazy to hear that you can be. But people say that about marijuana too, right? They're like, how do you be productive smoking weed? Right. And then you see it all the time.
Right.
And you would never guess.
Right.
Wow. That is insane.
Yeah. So it's not, I personally don't think that there are good drugs and bad drugs. I think that there are drugs, there are substances, and we use them, and we can have, more functional use or less functional use. Dual diagnosis is a thing. When somebody has underlying issues that they're using,
like
substances, mental health issues, trauma, PTSD, right? All of these are factors. And if I could, for example, be talking to my therapist and feel totally at liberty to say, these are the substances I currently use, and here's where I'm feeling a little bit like I'd like some support around how I use them. But I can't even do that, because if I tell my therapist that I'm using X, Y, and Z, that goes in my medical record, and that may affect my care down the line.
Oh, really?
Right? Absolutely. So anybody who is trying to have a really conscious, healthy relationship with their drug use is their hands are tied, Our culture doesn't support healthy, conscious drug use.
Even hearing you say those words, it sounds crazy to hear that.
Right?
I've never even heard that term of healthy drug use. Healthy and drug use don't seem like they would even be
Right.
aligned in
Okay.
the
So
same
let me give
sentence.
you an example. I'll just use myself as an example. I have bipolar disorder.
Mm-hmm.
I have bipolar disorder and PTSD. And I take mood stabilizer. I take it every fucking day.
Mm-hmm.
Literally every day, because it makes my life better. Healthy, positive, structured drug use.
But there is some difference between something like that or something like an antipsychotic that, is designed to help your body, and something like heroin, right? Isn't there some distinction
I
between just like a
mean,
euphoric? I don't know
I
what
don't
heroin
know
does, but
necessarily.
mm-hmm.
I think that, and I know this is like out there, but like I said, I'm for the decriminalization of all substances. Like if we could decriminalize them, then we could potentially see what it would be like for folks to navigate, substance use in a way that worked for them specifically, that was less, likely to end, have them end up in a precarious situation.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention, if you were to legalize all drugs, it would have other effects like possibly minimizing the impact of the cartel and drug operations and illegal drug operations that are coming in from other countries besides Mexico.
Absolutely.
There is an argument for that. It just seems like anything that's never been done before. It seems crazy unless it happens, and then you deal with what happens at the time. But hearing something like that, people are like, what? There's no way that everything would be legalized. But then nobody thought weed would be legalized. And that's a growing thing.
Yeah.
That is crazy. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I feel like I have so much now. I have to go home and process and try to reevaluate my life and try to, work through so many ideas.
That's when it's been a good interview.
Yeah, it has been fantastic. Thank you. Really, thank you for coming on. I think a lot of people will hopefully pull something from this that benefits them. I think a lot will. I think that'll be great.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Do you want to plug normally I have people plug their social media or plug where people can find them?
Yeah, so Hatcher 707, that's HACHR 707 is our handle. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We may have a Twitter account sometime soon. I don't know, maybe.
Be on the lookout.
But we're definitely, we have our Instagram and our Facebook. Hatcher707@gmail.com. If you want to get in touch with me specifically, if you have any questions. Literally we're at 1522 3rd Street in Eureka, down by the library. If you want to come on by and check it out, you're welcome to. If you want to come and get some kits, come and get some kits. If you want to come and have a meal, come and have a meal. Need some underwear, socks, towels, whatever.
Take advantage of it.
Come on down and get some stuff. If you need it, if you want it. If you have more than you need, come bring us some stuff. We'll take all donations, money, goods, kitchenware, whatever you
guys can get your hands on.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, just get in touch and come on by. Our door is open. Come say hi.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.